This was my very first field trip I had ever taken. I was in 5th grade, and my school decided that our first field trip would be at our local zoo. I had been to the zoo once or twice, but I've never seen everything since my parents always went to the exhibits they wanted to see, and not the ones I wanted to see. So I was hoping today that the teachers would let us all visit the lion exhibit. We got on the bus, and I sat with my friend and played games on his tablet while we rode to the zoo. Once we arrived, we were all split up into little groups with a random teacher or a parent chaperone. The group I was assigned to was the largest out of all of them, with around 12 kids, including me. The chaperone took requests from the kids on where they would like to go and what they would like to see. She would tell us all to raise our hand and tell her. She didn't call on me first. Instead, she called on another kid I've never seen before, and he wanted to go to the reptile pit. You know, the one with all the alligators in the pit and snakes in tiny glass cages? Yeah, that. She finally called on me after 7 other students, and I told her the lion exhibit. She took us all over to the lions, but sadly, the area was on lockdown due to malfunctions with the cage and the feeding system, so it wasn't open to the guests today. I was not happy. We went to 3 other exhibits before I formed a plan. I would ask the chaperone if we could go to an inside exhibit. After that, I would ditch the group and sneak into the lion exhibit. Not the cage, just the exhibit around it to see the lions. We went into the bug exhibit, and then I slipped away from the group. I started my way to the lion's cage. I was so excited. As I was almost there, I felt a strong, heavy hand rest itself on my shoulder. I thought the chaperone had found me out and was going to punish me. I turned around to face the person. It wasn't the chaperone. It was a random man I had never seen before. He was very tall and heavy-set, with a scruffy brown beard with acne all around his face. He asked me where I was going. I told him that I was going to see the lions. He said,
"That exhibit's closed, kiddo. Why would you want to go down there?"
I told him I really wanted to see them. He told me that he would take me down there himself. Now me, being a little kid and unaware of the dangers that this man was capable of, I agreed, and we started walking towards the lion enclosure. He asked me a lot of questions. He seemed very nervous about this whole thing. I asked him if he was okay. He said, yeah, it was just so hot outside, so he was sweating. I don't think he realized that it was 60 degrees, but I didn't say anything. We finally arrived at the lion enclosure, and he lifted me up so I could see past the tarp that was covering the exhibit. He asked me,
"Does it look cool up there?"
I said, yeah, it looks amazing. Thank you. Then he said,
"Want a closer look?"
I told him no thank you, that he already had done enough for me. He insisted, even though I was kind of trying to get down. The man then told me,
"Want to go in there with it?"
I got so scared I screamed, "No!" As he tried to push me over the glass enclosure, I screamed for help and started kicking and scratching. I managed to scratch the man's eye, which made him stagger back in a painful wail. I ran to where there were people again, and I told a worker I had found about the problem. He took me back to my chaperone and talked to her about it. I got lectured that I wandered away from the group. The guy I ran to never called the police on the man, though. The rest of the day went on as normal, and at the end, I got onto the bus and started to head home. I would never forget what happened, or as to why the man tried to push me into the lion enclosure. I forgot to mention there were 3 male lions in there, so I could only imagine what would have happened if he managed to push me in there. Remember, if you are ever going somewhere you don't know, stay with someone you trust at all times. My name is Caleb. I think I was in 8th grade when this took place. Our school board thought it would be a good idea to send all the 8th graders to this little supposedly haunted village that got overtaken by smallpox a long time ago. Now, I was never a big history reader or any of that, but I was excited to go and see an abandoned village. The village was called the Aztec Ghost Town in Arizona. I'm pretty sure you can go explore there, or even buy tickets to go there and look around it. Anyways, we got on the bus and started to head up to the location. Once we arrived, everyone was astounded. The place was huge. An entire Aztec civilization in the heart of Arizona is just amazing. We got out of the bus and were split into groups of 3. Each group had 4 people, and I was lucky enough to get paired with my friends Jordan and Zach. But the thing that bothered us the most about this was the other kid in our group. He was new to the school, so he didn't really have many friends. He was always insistent on running off on our own to explore the place ourselves without the teacher. We all agreed and followed the kid because why not, right? Yeah, that was a bad idea. He took us to this tall tower that kind of resembled a pyramid but wasn't a pyramid. Apparently, from what the kid said, oh yeah, I forgot to mention his name was Nolan. He said this is where they would take sacrifices to the top of the pedestal and sacrifice them to their god, who was the god of the sun. When we were at the top, we had a great view of everything. It was really beautiful. Out of nowhere, one of my friends grabbed my shoulder and spun me around to face the other way. There we saw some fire in the forest, but it wasn't spreading, more like bobbing up and down. Nolan, being a daredevil, ran after it and we followed him seconds later, after thinking about it for a second. Once we caught up to him, we saw him crouching behind a rock looking scared. We walked up to him and then saw why he was so scared. There was a group of around 5 to 6 men wearing these white gowns. It looked like it was a gathering of the Ku Klux Klan. And as we guessed it, yes, it was. We have never seen them before. They were chanting something we couldn't understand. Out of nowhere, they all darted their vision in our direction. Our hearts sank. We thought we were going to die. Especially me, being an African American myself, was absolutely terrified. They stared in our direction for about 2 minutes before they all put their hands in the air in sync and started screaming in a weird, ghostly voice. We had enough and started sprinting back to the Aztec village. I turned around while running to see if they were chasing us, and they were just staring. They stopped screaming and just stared directly into our souls as we ran. It was one of the scariest experiences I've ever experienced in my life. I'm glad to have stayed alive, and I will never be listening to Nolan's ideas ever again. I never told anybody about this story, but the friends I was with, including Nolan, back at that day are still my friends today. We are 22 years old now, and much more wise to know that wandering off on your own in an unknown place is one of the worst things you can do. I used to be a really self-centered student, so when a teacher would bring up we were doing anything fun, I would always get annoyed because I just wanted to get my work done and go home and relax afterwards. Out of nowhere one day, our teachers told all of us we would be going on a field trip to a local museum. I was 16 years old, and this really unmotivated me for the day, so I didn't want to go. So that's exactly what I did. I faked being sick right before we boarded the bus. I got a slip to leave school early. I felt kind of bad on my way home because I left my friends to go by themselves just for the reason I didn't want to go. Neither did they, so I felt terrible. But I wasn't about to have that ruin my day. I arrived at home and started to do the work I was given for the weekend while everyone was at the museum. I was watching a show. I think it was Dr. Phil or something. I like to watch TV while doing homework. It helped me concentrate, weirdly enough. While I was on a problem for algebra, a random notification popped up on the screen of the TV. It shut off the normal program and then went to the news channel. I was thinking it was just an emergency announcement by something that happened somewhere else in the world. I listened to it thinking nothing of it. Then, suddenly, while I was doing a problem for math, not really paying attention to the news, I heard my school's name. I stopped doing my work and paid attention. The news anchor went on to explain other details I was not familiar with yet until she said this. Agriculture Reservation Museum of Cleveland, Ohio was broken into by 3 masked men who were armed. They were apprehended at the scene of the crime, but not until 122 people were sadly killed. My heart dropped, and my body felt stiff. That's the museum my class went to that I faked being sick over. I called my mom, and she said she heard about it too and was trying to get more information about it, crying her eyes out because I could have been in that museum if I had not faked being sick. Since I am a civilian, I never really got much insight on what happened, but once the school opened back up after the incident, we held an event where everyone would hold candles outside where there were pictures of 5 people. A teacher named Ms. Anderson, a student named Kimberly, a student named Jonathan, and 2 other students I didn't recognize. I knew none of these people, but I still felt remorse for them. This is a terrible way to go, and my prayers go out to their family. I am expecting the other 7 that were killed were other people that were in the museum, not a part of our school. But just to think, I could have been one of the people on that board if I had gone on this field trip. Prayers out to everyone's family who has lost someone due to this incident. Be safe out there.